There's a lot of feedback we've been getting online, and we've been picking up online in regards to the BRT and the car-free days especially. So let's just look at some of them, and my panel also has state representation, government presentation right now, and we'll get into it in just a bit. And there's one that has actually, a screenshot that's been doing rounds on WhatsApp, for instance, that's by William Chepkut, who's an MP, and he says, car-free days are effected in cities that have subway, metro lines, rail lines, bike lanes, and some have waterways serving the CBD. Now look for this transport system serving Nairobi CBD and tell me this is not a case of mad cow disease. I want to bring in my panelists on this one. We will keep coming back here. And I have to immediate left Michael Ochieng, Engineer Michael Ochieng, the Chief Engineer, Metropolitan Infrastructure, Transport and Utility at the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. We have next to him the Principal Secretary in the State Department of Public Works. That's Paul Mwangi Maringa. Thank you for joining us. Maringa. Maringa, yes. And we have Constant Cap, who's a physical planner, who's with us here. I'll begin with you, Bwana PS. You've seen what Bwana Chepkut has said, which is raising questions on, do we have the supporting infrastructure to actually sustain this plan?
Probably we start off by correcting perceptions.
Yes.
Innovation is driven by need. It is not driven by infrastructure, it's driven by need. And in Nairobi, we have a serious need to reorganize our transportation systems to make sure they're more efficient. We have a clear symptom in here of extreme traffic jams, and as you know, traffic jams become even worse as you come towards the city center. We also have another need that is, has been self-evident in the history of the last 20 years of our nation. These scenarios of city councils carries chasing hawkers, and therefore you're saying you have Kenyans who wish to do honest business, make an honest living, in a place where they're considered to be prime, where they can access real markets, but they can't do that, and it becomes a security issue. The other need, of course, we have is, it takes two to tango. Hawkers don't come into town just because they want to peddle their wares. There is a demand for their wares. So this is not about metros and all those infrastructural system. But nevertheless, one needs to look at this sort of proposals in here holistically. We don't talk about a car-free day without staggered working hours, which we'll also be introducing. Is one that we want to launch, where we have the working population in the city coming to work at different hours, so we can reduce the overheating and the overload. It has been practiced elsewhere. You also have to look at it with the background of the BRT and the commuter rails that we are planning for the city of Nairobi, that when we want to reduce the number of private cars coming into the city, and these are the real causes of the congestion. Remember, you have about 4 million commuters coming into the city of Nairobi who don't live in Nairobi, and another 1.5 million coming into the city of Nairobi who live around Nairobi itself. That is roughly between 5.5 and 6 million. And most of this, I can tell you the majority of them, more than 3/4 of them, all right, actually a lot more, come by private vehicles that are carrying one person or two people. So it's very important for us, when we are complaining about traffic jams, to recognize that the real cause of the traffic jams is actually private cars that are driven with low occupancy. So, so we bring on board the car-free day, we bring on board the staggered working hours, but we also bring on board the commuter rail. We also bring on board what we're calling the BRT, which BRT, if you like, for lack of a better analogy, will be like a smaller commuter rail that is able to get you from one end of the town or the city to another over short periods of 30 minutes, and is an avenue of transportation that is both efficient, can access every place, is an avenue that is very well timed. BRT is work. Wherever you are, you find a BRT bus passing you every other 5 minutes. If you're very near town, every other 10 minutes, if you're a little bit further away from town. These are the concepts that we are rolling out. So it's not just a car-free day. Now, of course, Kenya must not be left behind in the School of Planning and Urban Design. We are redefining our cities and saying cities do not belong to motor vehicles. Motor vehicles are a facilitator. And therefore, the new drive in urban planning is to pedestrianize cities so that people have access to friendly environments where they can recreate themselves and interact and do their business. And then finally, again, to demystify concepts, nobody is closed in the city at all whatsoever, at all. What we are doing is trying to form a ring road around the CBD, where vehicles can actually go around the ring road and drop you within easy walking distance. We've also declared very clearly that in special circumstances, emergency vehicles for security issues and access to public offices, you will have access. If you look at the car-free day together with the BRT, for example, one BRT lane passes through Kenyatta Avenue. No, is it Kenyatta Avenue? Yeah, Kenyatta Avenue. From Kenyatta Avenue, you can reach the northern part of the city. You can reach the southern part of the city very easily. And if you're not using Kenyatta Avenue, one other BRT passes through Waiyaki Way. Another BRT passes through Haile Selassie. You can see that, eh? And then the rest of the vehicles are able to go through Moi Avenue. They're also able to go through Uhuru Highway. And that will be the ultimate arrangement when we finish this rollout. Eh? The rollout is happening progressively, sequentially, like planners work. For example, on Friday, we are starting off by closing one street. This is Taifa Road only. That road is not even 200 meters. Taifa Road, you know it, is a road in between the High Court and the Insurance Plaza.
Yes.
Okay, one street. We are closing it for one day, from 8 to 6. And we are closing it for the purposes of carrying out a trial and a practical experimentation.
Okay.
Thereafter, we'll upscale in several stages, about 3 stages, until eventually we have confidence and we brought everybody on board to do the entire CBD.
What is the time frame you're looking at between when you begin this first one and when you have a few more increased?
Yes, our target is to do Friday, and having done Friday, the public will be participating very actively. By the way, this must be seen as a people's initiative. We are just providing technical advice as a government, all right, and the county government of Nairobi. So we'll test it on Friday, and then thereafter we'll go on an overdrive of public participation, all right? We'll be having sessions in the KICC, in City Hall, together with the county government of Nairobi. You're going to see more of us in stations like this, discussing with Kenyans about this. So we'll run on that for another 2 weeks. And by about between 15th and 20th, we can again upscale and bring in about 3 more streets. We'll take the entire City Hallway. We'll take a portion of Harambe Avenue. We'll take this portion in front of Kenya Cinema, all right, just after Moi Avenue, and a bit of Mwangi Drive. We'll test it for another few weeks, and then we have confidence incrementally we can take more and more streets. But clearly, for the assurance of Kenyans, Waiyaki University Way is still going to be fully accessible. Uhuru Avenue is not going to be touched. Haile Selassie Avenue will not be touched. Moi Avenue will not be touched. And that means anybody coming from Thika Road who wants to go to Westlands can use Uhuru Highway. Okay. Can use University Way. Anybody coming from Kangemi who desires to go to any other part of town, they have a choice to go through University Way via Globe Cinema, and they find their way through town. If you're coming from Thika Road and you're going to, say, for example, Mombasa Road, you have 2 choices: University Way through Uhuru Highway, or you can go through Moi Avenue or Tomboya into Haile Selassie, and it's not been closed.
Okay, yes. And we'll get into this discussion in a bit, just to try and get further clarity on the same, and just see where some critics have actually brought up some issues. But first, we take a short break on NTV Today. We'll be back right after this with this conversation about car-free days and the larger BRT system. Welcome back to NTV Today. My name is Dan Mwangi, and today we're discussing about planning Nairobi in light of the BRT plans. And one of the main topics talking about is the car-free days, which the government is slowly implementing and is having a pilot beginning 2 days from now, the day after tomorrow on Friday. And in studio I have Engineer Michael Ochieng. He's the Chief Engineer in the Metropolitan Infrastructure, Transport and Utility. That is in the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructure. And we also have the PS, Public Works, that's Mwangi Maringa, and we have Constant Cap, who is a planner. Now, I want to bring in Engineer Michael Ochieng. The PS has begun explaining some of the ring roads and some of the different lines of the BRT. But now the question, something that's also coming under some criticism, is in terms of bringing in the hawkers. People are wondering, are we going to now be creating a bit of a marketplace that is uncomfortable for some when we now have this plan with the hawkers?
Yes. First of all, I want to demystify the issue about hawkers. Hawkers are Kenyans, and they sell product that other customers need who are also Kenyans. So they, in fact, instead of using the name hawkers, they should be given a more dignified way. And this is what we are trying to dignify by allowing them also to participate in the market. It would be unfortunate that the Mama Boga and the other people don't access a market, and they are left at the lower side of the town, in which they have got running battles with the county officials. Yet their products are something that they can sell. So what the Car-Free Day is trying to do is, first, if we are dealing with the decongestion issues, which all of us accept that there is a problem in terms of decongestion in the city. Decongestion has various effects. First of all, it's a pollutant by itself. It's uncomfortable, it's unhealthy to stay longer in traffic and so on. If we'll deal with the systems of dealing with it, how best can you use this space in the spaces that would be provided? And these spaces, we have organized the hawkers. Not now call them hawkers, the traders. The traders. In a manner that we have identified their organizations, they have got leaders. Their organizations have identified for us who are the hawkers. And we are going to move further through using BVR kit to register who are the hawkers who are going to participate on that day. Secondly, they are organized in a manner that they will not just trade with any sort of facilities, umbrellas and all the rest. We have designed stalls which are being manufactured by the Juakali industry for the purpose of having a very organized system. There will also be a code of conduct in which the hawkers have got to sign when they are going to participate in the doing business in the open spaces. And therefore they will be regulated. To the extent that they are given a dignified way to operate. We look at the security, we look at the cleanliness, so that by the end of the day, they don't litter the town. Suffice it to say also, some concerns are raised relating to the other business. Are they going to affect the other business? But I think it's more of a cross-pollination. If somebody is having a petrol station, for example, and then somebody else puts in a car wash next to him, does that stop your business, or does it enhance your business? So one has to look at it, not only that they will be a nuisance, I think they will add value, because the populace will be able to both get a bigger market rather than get an interfered market.
Okay, and how will you choose? How we recruiting these traders that Constant can have a stall, but Dann cannot? What is the criteria?
Yes. We have already more than 300,000 informal traders in the city. Our first target is to target 500. There are clearly those informal traders in the city center, in the CBD, who in the evenings, if you go around Wakulima Market and another part of the city, they are known. They have their own organizations. They have their own leadership. It is this leadership that we have engaged in terms of identifying who are the traders. We will move further because of security reasons to make sure their BVR is also captured so that they are correct. These traders who are chosen and selected by the organization with support from the county, because previously the county used to handle them, will be able to give us a clear indication who is the actual hawker, and we are going to deal with the immediate ones first.
Okay.
Let me add on to that, if I may.
Yes.
The initiative for Car-Free Day reduces vehicles in the city, creates room for urban design, to redesign our city and make it more friendly and more walkable, at least for those 2 days. And let's remember, only 1 day out of 5 working days has been targeted. The rest of it is a weekend. As an objective, the other objective obviously is to create business opportunity for vulnerable people. And I say vulnerable because most hawkers are young people, and they are people who don't have access to unassured source of income or employment. For that reason, we've taken it upon ourselves to consult extensively with various stakeholders. And I think in terms of choice of who benefits, that's why I'd like to mention that of interest is to continue consultations with Micro and Small Enterprise Authority, the Chamber of Commerce, the Central Business District Association, Kenya National Hawker Association, Kenya National Street Trade Association, the Masai Markets, informed organized hawking groups, and of course the Namata among other people. We must bring on board the MCAs, especially of the CBD, the political leadership of Starehe as a constituency is very critical, and other affiliated constituencies. So clearly, these are the people who, over the next few days, are going to shape the material expression of this initiative. But I wish to probably remind ourselves, even as we're debating in here, you have 300,000 hawkers. You want to carry out a dry run with only 70 hawkers. We'll be trusting this political leadership of the hawkers for them to understand that Friday is not so much a business opportunity, but an experiment, a testing ground, and that we can't possibly bring in 300,000 hawkers in here to test, isn't it? Mm. And to also expand the car-free day. The car-free day is not just for hawkers, and I like to call them itinerary traders, because you see now we're going to license them. As you said, they have a code of conduct they're signing up to. They're going to be self-managing in their own committees. Mm. Hawking is not going to be any longer laying cartons on the ground floor. Mm. We've designed stores. I don't know if your camera is able to capture this.
Yes, we can get...
We've designed stores. These ones have been done by the State Department of Public Works. Mm. All right, some of them are collapsible. Others, these are design drawings.
Yeah, I can hold them, then they can...
Yeah, please hold them and take them through these few leaves until the last
okay.
one. So we've designed them using our engineers and architects in the State Department of Public Works. And essentially, as I was saying, the activities are not just going to be buying and selling. We're going to have food courts. We are encouraging the cafeterias and restaurants to take advantage, like it happens particularly in Europe, the Asian part of Europe and the northern part of Europe. That on days like this, cafeterias take opportunity to expand their business space, and they actually roll out tables into the streets, so that we can have a kind of a carnival environment and increase the business. Okay. We are also looking at this sort of opportunity as an opportunity for, you know, these entertainers who do entertainments over the lunch hour in a semi-illegal environment. Yeah. They are going to come in. And on Friday, that is a mix you're going to have. We have a bit of roller skating, entertainers. You can come and preach if you like. All right? Any activity.
Okay.
Creative, yes.
Okay. I want to bring in Constant.
Just to add on to that, maybe I may mention, we've actually tried this as private citizens in the past, and we've had very positive results. Over the last 3 years, various non-profit groups and citizens have come together to hold what we've called the Nairobi Placemaking Week, where in 2016 we closed part of Mwangi Street around around Jivanji Gardens, and we did it for about three days. And there was a very, initially people were a bit confused, you know, where the car's going to go, what's going to happen. After a few days, we even the restaurant owners came and asked, can we come onto the street? Yeah. You know, our business is doing better. Following year, we did it right outside here. I think you have a picture of that, Banda Street. Yeah. Yes. Just opposite Nation Center.
I remember this.
And then last year, there's a group that worked on the same thing, doing it at Luthuli Avenue. And this had a positive social, environmental, economic, and impact on the general population and the people around the area. Of course, that was on a smaller scale, but that's how you experiment. Like the two gentlemen have mentioned. You know, you experiment, you try it. Some things may work, some things may not work. Fortunately, the experiment we tried out worked very positive. And if something doesn't work, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, if something doesn't work, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, exactly. During TICAD and UNCTAD, City Hall was closed. Even the Blue Economy Conference, it was closed to vehicular traffic. We didn't have people protesting because they could not get to work or not move from one place to another. So some of these, we call it in planning, we call it tactical urbanism. You know, small changes that you make in a city that have a much bigger and long-term positive impact. There was also, I remember talking to the former mayor, Joe Akech, who was in the city at the time when Mwangi Street was pedestrianized. You know, Mwangi Street, we can call it semi-pedestrianized. It's almost 90% of our pedestrian street. Yes. And at first there was a lot of reluctance from even, he told us, from even the business community there. But today, go and try and make that place two ways. You'll see many people like walking there. The PS has mentioned musicians. There's a guy who plays his guitar there with a small box in the evenings, and people put a few coins. It's a much more lively street. There's much more life towards
Integration.
it. Yeah, integrated with different aspects, and you feel there's a much more sense of comfort walking through there. Just like Aga Khan Walk, you know, where people during the day will feel more comfortable walking there, other than on Moy Avenue, which is just, you know, a few meters parallel, but doesn't have good enough pedestrian space.
Once more, let's remind ourselves, cities are about living and business environments. They're not about motor vehicles. It's a blunder that has been made over the last 100 years. It's the Industrial Revolution, and when the motor vehicle came. For the first time people build urban areas, they were actually walking environments, because it is when you're walking that you can shop. It's when you're walking that you can recreate and interact. And this is what we're trying to bring back into our city. I must remind our viewers in here that you have good examples of a city that we all know very well, The Hague, sometimes for the wrong reasons.
We don't know its dynamics, but we know its implications.
The Hague is an interesting city, and it's actually becoming a model city in Europe, because between 50 and 70% of the people in Hague either come to work through bicycles and walking. And for that reason, The Hague is a very healthy nation. We would like to be able to encourage Kenyans to allow, you know, to support us so that we can move our nation in that direction, where our cities are living spaces. I'd like to give an example of a zebra crossing in Kenya. Any one of us sitting in here and those who are watching me, you know that you always go through a zebra crossing with trepidation. And many are the times when you have to run across, isn't it? So you become a little zebra out of the park in an urban area, and this is how we are treating our people. Yet, the city is designed for you, not for the car.
Have the conversation about the BRT and the car-free days. Again, once I have representation from the private sector as well as from government. And I want to look, gentlemen, I want to look at some of the tweets that have been put out by different people. Then we can respond to them. So I'll just take a number of them first of all. The first one here is by Don Watilia. Says, how can you impose car-free days on workers / taxpayers in the CBD? There are people who are not physically able. Find another solution for the hawkers, like allocating a permanent spot where they sell their wares in turns or something. And this has partly been addressed. We'll pick another and then we'll respond to them collectively. This is Celine Mutua saying, I hope the organization skills are better this time and the buses will be there. Not just an announcement for you to be seen as busy. And we'll get to that because we know there have been delays in regards to the buses. The first time we were promised the buses are coming, we waited, it never came, or they never came rather. And we have Adiel saying, I honestly think that we should look on the positive side of this matter for once. We are always antagonizing the government based on a few words. Nairobi can do with some free trade days. You've got some supporters there, at least as government, amid all the criticism. We have Kizito Namulanda saying that we would have loved to stroll to Nairobi for shopping rather, or a bite from nice places or on a car-free day, but it appears the day is set aside for hawking as the main purpose might end up being the most congested of days. And we have Brian Orina asking, will Waheshimiwas be part of this? Will they also leave their machines at home? So I want, first of all, Bona PS, he's asking whether Waheshimiwas will be part of this. Will they also leave their big machines at home? Will you yourself be walking from will you be using a BRT? We've seen in the first world countries, we have even people as high level as prime ministers using public transport. Is this something you're going to be seeing with yourself?
Let me say this, speaking for myself, I must lead by example. And we also need to realize philosophically and recognize the direction we are driving our country into. And we keep talking about it. I think it's time we started, how do they say, putting our money where our mouth is. We are looking for a society that is less divided and therefore more cohesive. We are looking for a society that has less hierarchy, where we don't have a divide between rich and poor people, where everybody has access. And that is why in transportation we talk about mass rapid transit, mass movement of people. So our thinking is not so much about the exception, it's about the public. And I can tell you, I'd really enjoy the comforts of leaving my office and walking down to Uhuru Park and to the city to enjoy this sort of environment and intermingle with my electorate. So that, one, I am demystified as a technical leader, and that the people get to feel they are very much in touch with the public. So I really would not want to turn this debate into individuals. How about the Minister for Security? How about the PS for whatever? I mean, the nation is about 40 million people, isn't it? And what is good about 40 million people certainly is good for us. What we need to do is assure every Kenyan but the transition is going to be sequential, progressive, so that we can include the priorities and interests of everybody. And I said earlier, there will be privileged access. But remember, even in Netherlands, they can do it. They are walking human beings like us, 2 legs, 2 arms, 1 head. If they can do it, all right, then we can do it. And the ideal is a situation whereby every Kenyan has free access without segregation.
Okay, I want you to Constant come in and just give us your thoughts on some of the feedback we've seen here.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to another aspect that we keep forgetting, and one of the big problems we have in African cities today is access to jobs by the poor. Now, what good transformative urban mobility does, it makes it easier for people who are unemployed or the lower classes to be able to actually access jobs in an easier manner. And that's one of the benefits you get with things such as BRT. It will probably cost half the amount that people pay in current bus fare. It will save them half of the amount of time that people spend accessing their jobs. Because a challenge you have in many of these African cities is that poor people either live on the periphery or on another side of town, and it's difficult for them to cross town. Thus, it makes it more difficult for them to access jobs, access services, etc., etc. And this comes in as a big, a proper mass rapid transit comes as a big plus. Another important thing is what we'll call access to multimodal mobility. Okay, and this is having as many means of movement as possible. So we've talked so far about BRT, we've talked about rail transit, we've talked about possibility of better pedestrianization, we've talked about even possibility of cycling. Now here you have a citizen who has 5 options, okay? If you add the fact that he can also use his car, and maybe number 6, he can use hailing taxi service. You have 6 options to move around the city. At the moment, people are limited. You either have your car or you use a matatu. And then there are few of us who take the risk of cycling around the city. But with the infrastructure that the PS has mentioned they intend to develop, suddenly you have a variety of options to move, and you can actually even schedule yourself as a professional or as a student or as a parent much better to be able to move around the city.
Okay, I want to bring engineer here, and we've seen sample concern about people living with disabilities. That you'll find there's we even have like the parking slots that are usually set aside for them because of the convenience it brings for those of them who are unable to have the normal mobility as the rest of us. And so if, for example, you're being dropped by the bus somewhere and you still have some distance to make, is it something you just have to deal with and live with? That's the reality they're going to be facing? Or will there be any kind of special access for those living with disabilities?
I'll just answer it straight. First, there'll be exceptions. And of course, people with disability fall in that category. And therefore, they'll be looked at differently. And limited mobility for them will be available. Secondly, the issue about whether or not it's happening. Today, even from your office here, if you want to go to the railway station, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to take a taxi? Or most likely you'll see that you'll be so much congestion that it will be easier to walk. So already many people have developed the culture of walking because of the congestion itself.
Actually, just to point on that, because I can use the example of, like, for example, ourselves here at Nation, when we are going for assignments. So we usually have our vehicles here which take us for assignments.
Correct.
We would walk sometimes, but we also have some sensitive, expensive equipment.
Yeah.
So what then, is there any kind of a special provision for not only us as the media, but also other organizations that may have such sensitivities? Because I would want to walk to cover story at railways, but there's also the concern about the equipment that we are carrying, which could be expensive.
As I said, you cannot completely box this and say this will be a must and this will not. The exceptional cases will be dealt with, and of course with the assessment to what extent are they exceptional cases. I also wanted to respond to the issue about hawking.
Yes.
I think one of the comments is that we are just leaving the city to hawking. And if I would recall what the PS has clearly indicated, it will not be only for hawkers. It will be for many recreation activities. And some of them we have showed you in the pictures. We expect to get the Javas and the other recreation activities, extending their facilities into the open spaces. Secondly, it is only a 2-day event out of the week. We are not closing the the city for the whole week. And thirdly, the perception that the city will be closed, it gives the wrong signal. The city will still be accessible. At the pilot stage, we are going to deal with the 200 meters along Taifa Road.
Yes.
At the second stage, we are only going to deal with the area around Kenya Cinema, Kencom. You come back to Taifa Road and the Harambee Avenue area and the Aga Khan Walk. It will be a smaller scale. Yet all routes for public transport and even vehicles, the arteries will still be open for the people to access. So this fear that all of a sudden Tuesday and on Friday and thereabout, people will close the city should be removed from the people's perspective, because we are moving in stages. We are going to try the experiment on one street, then we upscale it, learn lessons, then upscale it to the next level, and eventually to the third level. And even in the third level, where we're talking about the area around University Way, Uhuru Highway, Haile Selassie Avenue, and Kenyatta Avenue, those are just the boundaries, but the roads will be open and accessible to vehicles and to public means.
So basically, if I was to be accessing, as the pilots go on, I can still access CBD through other routes, just not these specific ones.
Correct.
And I know another concern that has come up, and maybe quickly because we need to be coming to a close, what of matatus? The matatu people are quite uncertain of what this means for them, whether they're also going to be told do not come into town on those days and what it means. And it has been raised actually in Mombasa. What does this mean for the businesses that rely on the transport sector especially?
I think here we need a broad scoping, a broad approach. We said this is part of the initiative to remodel urban transportation, to remodel our user patterns in our urban environments. And therefore, the response to the matatus is to remind them that the ownership of the BRT belongs to the matatus. The operation of the BRT is their operation. The only thing government is doing is catalyzing the process, because we must have something to kickstart this process. It's very important for matatu owners to know that. Nobody in the matatu industry will be run out of business. And this is why recently when we had a press conference in the ministry, we were actually accompanied by all the matatu owners associations. Yeah, because we've been having intense discussion with them under the auspices of NAMATA. Now, in terms of a director says, I want to draw out the scenario of where we're going, which is where other urbanized cities, developed cities have gone. We're going into a situation whereby we're going to have main trunks of transportation. The main trunks will be occupied by the BRT, other trunks will be occupied by the commuter rail. Now, these trunks take us from one end of the city to another end of the city, and they're just simple trunks. Like currently we have 5 such routes. We have these 5 routes, the main ingresses into town. We have Jogoo Road, we have Juja Road, we have Thika Road, we have Wayaki Way, we have this route to Kawangware, all right? And then we have Ngong Road, and then we have the road picking up Embakasi. This is the Mombasa Road. These are actually the main routes for the BRT, right? Complemented by the commuter rail. The rest of the city is open to provide feeder access into these main trunks. And that basically implies those who are able to buy into the BRT, all right, will be able to run the BRT. The others who don't buy into the BRT have an assured market, because you're saying if you're going to be having a BRT bus or a commuter rail passing where you are every 5 minutes, right, we are assuring the matatu people of business, because they have to bring in passengers there every 5 minutes. So you see, there is synergy, and that is why I say it is a consultative initiative. It's an initiative that is government is particularly sensitive to make sure every possible player is included. And I wanted to outline another very important thing in here.
Just briefly, so that we can,
Yes. The business opportunity. I think it's nice to drop a few figures. From my estimations, every day we have a car-free day for 5,000 traders in the country. We unlock business volume of 39.5 million Kenya shillings. That is money going directly into the pockets of the most vulnerable. Every day. When we upscale, say to the full CBD, where we're having, and Westlands, where we're having 100,000 traders, itinerary traders, we're saying that our daily earnings will not be anywhere less than 60 million Kenya shillings. Overall, that basically means we have a 3.8 billion economy that we are facilitating our hawkers. And surely, once that happens, guess what are the spin-offs? less insecurity because these young people are employed, isn't it? Less conflicts with the city council. Our city council carries can be deployed to do other things. This same initiative is going to unlock job opportunities, in cleaning, security, immediately to about 10,000 young people. So there are all these benefits that we don't want to lose as we move ahead with this initiative. And really, what I'd like to do is encourage our countrymen not to be afraid of every new idea, because we are not going to develop this country with a culture of fear. We're going to develop it through code analysis, and once we hit on a good idea, then we must be brave enough to experiment and learn as we go on.
Okay, and I just want to bring Constantine, just closing remarks. And we have these images here of the BRT, the lines that the red lines that were drawn on our super highway, as we call it. And ordinarily, how it looks, the structure that it is now, it almost looks like an express lane, because if, for example, hypothetically, if it is going to be leaving Nairobi and go all the way, say, to Githurai, it means I can't drop off at Roysambu because there's no allowance on this side. So I just want Constant to give us what would be an ideal case as we close for this, to have this kind of plan work. Then now the government can also respond very briefly.
Yeah, well, ordinarily, many BRT systems tend to work with median lane being used as a segregated lane. That's the lane in the middle of the road. And I know many Kenyans were asking questions, shouldn't it be the outer lane? Why are they putting this marking on the inner lane? And this is for very simple reasons. First of all, to avoid clashes with vehicles coming in from other roads, from feeder roads. You don't want a situation where a vehicle is coming in from a feeder road and then the bus has to stop for it, because it's actually an express service. The other reason is you don't want it interfering with parking. The PS has mentioned that it will be coming into the CBD, so you don't want a situation where on Kenyatta Avenue somebody decides, to park on the curb, and that happens to be the BRT way. Other key characteristics that come with BRT systems include level platform boarding, and this enables particularly two key things. First of all, it helps those who are persons with disability to easily be able to access, on wheelchairs, on crutches, to get onto the bus. If you've seen with some of our buses, we have the current system, you have to go up what we call this G+2, 3 steps up. Yes. From the ground plus 3 steps, which is not, there are people who actually suffer.
It's unfriendly to
the elderly, the children, the sick, etc. And then the other thing we also have is pre-board payment system, like happens with the Syokimau railway line, those who've used it. So you pay your ticket in advance, and then you get into the system, and once you're on the bus for a certain period of time, you can use it. At least that's how it works in Dar es Salaam. You can use it for a certain period of time till you get to your destination and come out. So those are some of the characteristics that are critical in the establishment of bus rapid transit systems. Then it's not about having a station in town and the next one in Githurai, but having them well located at different points, depending on the land use of the area. Because if you look at land use, has a very big impact on how, and transportation are quite linked. When you look at even most bus stops, they are near a shopping mall, near major junction, near post office, so there's that link between land use, and stations tend to be located along such areas.
Okay, I just want us to bring to a close there, because we are out of time and we need to be running out of this studio. I just want to bring in Engineer, then PS. In the closing remarks, kindly, just in 1 minute, just tell us what the take homes here in regards for you as the engineer, like this BRT. What is the plan to ensure that this actually becomes something that is not going to make me feel like I'm bound to doing an express trip once we have this in place?
Yeah, I think the BRT, in addition to just being what appears express, will have its infrastructure. Its infrastructure will include several stops, as has been enumerated clearly, and those are being designed. Yes. Level platforms which enable access, and they are low-level BRTs, and they are also high-level BRTs. And the platforms are going to be upgraded with the stages to be able to accommodate that. In addition to that, there will be the element of the stage, which will be communicating electronically with the BRTs themselves. So you can be able to plan that this bus, I'll take it at this time, and it's likely to arrive at the destination at this time. So there'll be direct communication for you to know exactly when you are in the stage, when is my bus arriving on the line that I'm supposed to use on the BRT. In addition to that, for the disabilities, people with disability, the BRT vehicles will come with ramps. Electronic ramp or even manual ramps, depending on the maintenance element in design, which will enable the use of BRT to be very effective, and they are slightly wider. And even more to add is that they are safer in terms of the body design. It's not just a piece of mabati that is put on their body, so that if there is any chance of an eventuality or a crash, then there's more added safety in the BRT buses.
Okay, thank you. And Bona Pierce, in your closing remarks, very briefly, what is the take-home that we should take home?
For closing remarks, I think I want to touch on an issue that we seem to have sidestepped in our discussion, but is a very essential contribution to the whole process of transport review and modernization, what we are calling the staggered working hours. We have studied the working patterns of people in the city of Nairobi and discovered national government is the biggest employer. Second to it is the Nairobi city county government.
Yes.
And we've realized one reason why we have bottlenecks is because everybody reports to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we're actually coming onto the roads at the same time. So we've done a review, just like the car-free days for the last 2 years, quietly, behind in the engine room. And we have a proposal that will be rolling out simultaneously with the car-free day, where half of the national government workers and the Nairobi county workers will be reporting to work at 7 o'clock and leaving at 4. The other half will be reporting to work at 9 and leaving at 6. And in our studies, it shows, should we adapt that, by that fare soup, that decision alone will reduce the traffic congestion by 20%. So we are hoping the private sector will follow in step. And if the private sector follows in step, then we have every employer in the city adopting the same regime of working hours. And traffic jam alone in Nairobi with that decision should scale down for between 30 and 40%. This is just an example that we're not just thinking about car-free day, BRT, commuter rail. We have a whole range of initiatives that cut across sectors, you'll be surprised, including health and education, that are designed to provide nodes of urban development exactly where we are. So if you're living in Buruburu, you're self-sufficient, you don't need to travel out. If you're living in Morongo, you're self-sufficient, you don't need to travel out. All these eventually will actually make our town extremely livable. The harassment of traffic jams and the competitive access will disappear. Finally,
yes,
we have something
just
we are
10
calling,
seconds because
yes,
I'm being
yes.
kicked out.
Yes,
They will take us off.
Finally, we have something we call park and ride.
Yes.
The BRT has big collectors. Like in Kasarani, we have a huge park and ride. We'll be building that. Along Westlands, a huge park and ride. Somewhere around a Galleria, a big park and ride. So essentially, even this whole concern about vehicles coming into the city is actually going to disappear, because we are going to set up such an efficient system. We'll be leaving our vehicles a little bit further out of town, and then coming into town on the BRT, and then we can organize local running around. Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been speaking to the PS in the State Department of Public Works, Paul Mwangi Maringa, as well as Engineer Michael Ochieng, the Chief Engineer, Metropolitan Infrastructure, Transport and Utility in the same ministry. And we have Constant Cap, a physical planner. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen, and for the clarity on the same. It's a discussion that could take 5 hours if we had to, you know. But I hope we've gotten some good clarity for the viewer to understand the different dynamics. And we're still seeing Paul asking us questions on will matatus, you know, be there, but at least that has been addressed here. Some of the major, the topical points have actually been addressed, be it about the stalls, and people have thought it's, like you said, Paul thought it's people who come with the carton boxes, put their wares, ready to fold them up and run away from Kanjo. And so at least that has been addressed. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen, and thank you for staying with us on NTV today. We now close the show, but NTV takes over in just a bit, so be sure to join the conversation in Kiswahili. My name is Dan Mwangi. Have a great mid-morning into afternoon.